So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again for attending. And just to reiterate what Leo said, thanks for your patience as we get technical issues worked out here. But without further ado, looking forward to jumping in today. So this is the fourth webinar in a series that we've had over the last few months. The previous three webinars have covered topics including extreme heat in the built environment, heat and health, as well as local solutions. And so today we're going to be talking a little bit more about preparing for this summer 2023. I'll also add that recordings of today's presentation as well as previous presentations will be available online on DEC's Extreme Heat website, and that'll include a link to the chat as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Leo now to start off as panel moderator as we move forward. Leo?
Thank you, Neil, and thank you all for being here. Welcome to the fourth and final webinar in this series of extreme heat. We've already heard in previous webinars about extreme heat and health impacts across different policy landscapes, about the relationship of extreme heat and the built environment, and started hearing about some amazing models for local action to address extreme heat at last week's webinar. Those webinars are available as recordings on the DEC's website, and I'll post that link in a little while in the chat as well. I'm also very grateful for our colleagues at the University of Buffalo for helping host this webinar series, and all the amazing speakers so far, and especially for today as well in what I think will be a very exciting webinar. Our webinar today and throughout this webinar, we encourage you to post questions in the chat. We will reserve the questions for the end for our panel discussion, but we'll address clarifying question at the end of each of the three segments this webinar is divided in today. So there are three sections for today, where we try to look at extreme heat tools, resources, and some solutions that are available to address extreme heat across the different scales. We start off in the first section about with an overview of extreme heat and health, some data that can inform understanding impacts on your communities, and some tools available for planning for extreme heat. Before, in the second section, we will dive into some highlighted state programs and resources that are available for supporting extreme heat adaptations. Those are just some highlights of many other programs that are available, but that we thought would be particularly valuable today to highlight. And finally, we will conclude with a look at, again, local models for solutions with speakers by El Puente and the St. Lawrence County Department of Public Health and the New York State Association of County Health Officials. So I'm very excited for these presentations today, and also for David Hondula, who's Phoenix's Chief Extreme Heat Officer, for a concluding reflection and extension on the work that is being done that will lead us into the panel discussion. So this is a number of presentations with brief spotlights to give you essentially a brief overview of the landscape of different ways that can inform your adaptation planning and actions. With that all in mind, it's my pleasure to hand it back actually to Neil Mascatello from the Department of Health for an opening presentation, followed by Shannon Clark from the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, but I would be remiss to not briefly introduce the speakers. Neil Mascatello is Director of the Bureau of Environmental and Occupational Epidemiology in the Center of Environmental Health at the New York State Department of Health. Neil is also currently the Principal Investigator on the CDC-funded Climate Ready State and Cities Initiative grant, which supports efforts to reduce the public health impacts on climate change. A key current focus of the grant involves a partnership with the New York State Association of County Health Officials, from whom we also will hear later today, to encourage climate and health adaptation working among local health departments. And so without further ado, Neil, thank you so much for presenting, and I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Leo. I appreciate the introduction. And again, good afternoon, everybody. Craig, are my slides loaded, or should I share my screen?
Your slides are loaded, and you don't need to share your screen. Just say next slide when you're ready to move on.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. All right. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about perspectives from DOH on what individuals and local health governments can be doing to prepare for a heat wave. I'm going to run through the information I have fairly quick, but I've tried to include links to all the information I'll be going over, and I've added my email address at the end, so feel free to reach out. I know there'll be time for a panel discussion at the end, but always happy to hear about any additional questions that you have coming out of this discussion today. So looking forward also to hearing the speakers to come later. So next slide, please. So Leo mentioned the Climate Ready States and Cities Initiative, and that grant really uses what we call our BRACE framework, building resilience against climate effects, as a way to sort of focus around identifying potential disease burden associated with climate change, and then identifying and implementing public health interventions to reduce risks associated with climate change. So a lot of times we'll refer to that as the BRACE program in our work. But that funds a lot of the work that I'll be talking about today, or is part of the partnerships that were involved in the work that I'll be talking about today. Next slide. So I think we all recognize now that in addition to extreme heat, there's a lot of other environmental impacts that climate change will have, and that's associated with a number of different health outcomes. So I just wanted to, point out that while we are focused in on extreme heat today, there's really a lot of public health ramifications associated with climate change, and those will be important to think about moving forward. Not all the health impacts listed on this slide may be equally impacting New York at this point, but there are things that we want to be planning for now or down the road as the climate change continues to evolve in the state. Next slide, please. So just setting the stage a little bit, I'm going to talk a little bit about some work we did a few years ago in partnership with NASA. It was actually a grant funded by NASA that the BRACE project staff partnered with that team on to explore associations between heat and health in New York State. Essentially what we found is that for a number of different health outcomes, starting with heat stress in the upper left corner, acute kidney failure in the upper right, cardiovascular disease on the bottom right, and then dehydration in the bottom left, we see impacts from heat very clearly in terms of the number of people who go to hospitals or emergency departments as weather warms. And you can see as the temperature gets warmer, those risks increase. The other thing I'll note too is that although the risks are relatively small, we start to see statistically significantly elevated risks at levels down in the lower 80s for some of these health outcomes. So that really led to subsequent efforts to work with the National Weather Service to adjust thresholds at which heat advisories are issued. Next slide. Again, just summarizing sort of a key finding too is that we tended to see a lag effect in these risks, in the sense that it seems as though there's some delayed effects in terms of additional risk beyond the actual day that you may experience a warm temperature. Next slide. And then sort of interestingly for us, we saw similar risks when looking at New York City compared to other cities in New York State compared to other areas. We think that there's probably different factors that may play into that. You know, we recognize that cities, areas of some cities experience an urban heat island effect, which may not be occurring in parts of rural New York State, but there may be other factors that make people more vulnerable in other parts of the state. So this is something we're also interested to look into a little bit more. Next slide, please. And so this is just a summary of what I referred to earlier, that this led to work with, you know, these results led to work with the National Weather Service field offices in New York State to reduce the threshold at which heat advisories are issued in the state. Next slide. So, you know, with this information in hand, what we could do about it. So if the question today is what can we do to prepare, I guess what I'll talk about here is some resources that could be available to you all on this call that could be of some use in the work you do, or you know, to keep in mind, you know, in your interactions either at work or personally. Next slide, please. The first place I would recommend starting would be going to the DOH webpage, where we have a climate, weather, and health webpage, which is a link at the top here. In particular, an extreme heat webpage, which provides a nice overview of the impacts of heat and what you can do to reduce your risks. If you like a more visual presentation, we have an extreme heat story map. Again, that provides some New York specific data on how we've seen temperature trends evolve over the last 30 or 40 years, the types of health impacts we see, and steps you can take to reduce your risk. We also have a climate and health profile, which was a formative document for our BRACE program and sort of provided a baseline on potential health impacts of climate change in New York State. And on the right, you just see some examples of, you know, specific additional fact sheets aimed at groups like workers, athletes, as well as the elderly population. So that's a good place to start for, you know, informing yourself about heat health risks and steps you could take to reduce your risk. And I'm also interested to know, you know, a lot of these websites, we do have a BML where, you know, members of the public can contribute questions. So if there's something that you're interested in that you don't see on the website, feel free to send, you know, that BML, that shared mailbox, an email, and we can find the resource. CDC has good resources. A lot of other states have good resources. You'll be hearing from Dr. David Hongela from Phoenix later. They've done a whole lot of work. So, you know, we have networks of partnerships we can reach out to if there's information that you're interested in that you don't see. Next slide, please. So we've also developed, or you know, I wanted to flag some data products and analyses that could also be useful, tools that could also be useful in thinking about how to prepare for extreme heat this summer. The first I'll mention, next slide, please. So I'm going to be talking about all these tools in the next few slides. The first one was the County Heat and Health Profile reports. These are reports developed for each county in the state, which include you know, county-specific information on temperature trends over time. You could see some information about rates of hospitalizations and ED visits for health outcomes that are associated with heat. You can also find information about your county's heat vulnerability index profile. And there's also a link there where you can download your own census tract level temperature data if you're interested in that. Those documents also include links to resources that can help in developing your plans for extreme heat. Now, I'll also mention on the previous slide, you might have seen there was also a link to the Heat Vulnerability Index, which has its own website as well, where you can you could see in a little bit more detail information on heat vulnerability, down to the census tract level where heat vulnerability is higher, and some of the factors that we think makes a particular area more vulnerable. I saw a question in the chat about ED. I apologize for not saying that more clearly. ED is emergency department visits. So a lot of times when we're looking at health data, we look at records of hospitalizations and emergency department visits. Next slide, please. We also working with local health departments, local emergency managers, as well as DISHs, Department of Homeland Security Emergency Services, maintain what we call a cooling center finder. This is based upon counties reporting information to us about locations of cooling centers in their county. You can get this in list form or map form. And if you use the map form, you can also get driving directions if that's useful. So this is another tool that you can seek out to get information, inform yourself about where there are places to get cool in your county. Thank you, Leo, for the 1-minute warning. I'm going to try to move a little quicker. Next slide, please. The fourth link on the slide a few back was to NYSERDA's Climate Report, which is an assessment of impacts we're likely to experience in New York State from climate change for a number of different sectors, public health, as well as many others. This includes regional information about projected changes in temperature and precipitation over time. There's actually a big effort right now to update this as part of the climate impacts assessment. That's sort of that's coming soon. But in the meantime, this is a document that you could check out to learn more about what the longer term climate impacts will be. Next slide, please. So just really quick on partnerships. Go ahead, next slide. Another program I would direct everyone to is OTDA's Heat Cooling Benefit Program. So OTDA, for people meeting certain program criteria, will fund installation of a free AC unit or fan to people who don't otherwise have access to cold air, to a cold spot in their home. So this is helpful for people who may not find it easy to get to cooling centers. And again, it's just another tool that's available and something to be aware of in thinking about preparing for heat this summer or future summers. Next slide, please. I'm not going to talk about this too much, but we have a really good partnership with the DEC Climate Smart Communities program, and we've tried to encourage integration of public health into that program, I think successfully in some cases. We have a webinar online. There's a link on the slide. Check it out. I think there's some interesting examples of what some counties have done more in the area of climate change mitigation and increasing active transportation, these climate public health connections, but I think some of you may find that interesting. And I just have one more slide. I was going to mention quickly, and we've already heard a little bit from my intro about the work we're doing with NYSECHO, encouraging county action around climate and health. We've recently funded some counties to do some work, climate and health work of their own. A number of them are doing work related to extreme heat. We look forward to hopefully continuing that, and you're going to hear more about that from one county today. So next slide, please. I apologize for running a little bit long. My email address is here. I look forward to seeing questions in the chat or any follow-up in the future, but hand it over to Shannon now.
Before we hand it over to Shannon, I'm handing it over now to Megan Holton, who's going to be our moderator today and is a PhD student at the Urban and Regional Planning at the University at Buffalo and is also helping coordinate the Extreme Heat Action Plan Academic Expert Panel. Neil, thank you so much for an awesome presentation. And Megan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Then thank you so much and take us away.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much for your patience, everyone, with the tech stuff. Maybe before Shannon starts, I'll just introduce her. A little bit first. So Shannon Clark is an experienced state and local hazard mitigation planner and has worked with a wide range of New York State agencies, counties, and municipalities over the past several years. She has managed a large portfolio of hazard mitigation assistance grants and supports the ongoing development of the Mitigate New York web-based planning platform and program for state and local hazard mitigation planning. Shannon is a lifelong New Yorker and has lived in Rockaway Beach, the Hudson Valley, and the Capital Region. She holds degrees in urban and regional planning, media studies, and anthropology. Take it away, Shannon.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I also was having some technical issues, so I'm sorry that I can't join on camera, and I won't really be able to see what's happening in the chat either because I am using my iPhone right now. But we're here, so I'm very happy to be talking with all of you. And like Neil, I'll have our contact information up on the last slide, so you all can reach out to us. And, you know, I think there's a little bit more information in these slides than we're going to be able to cover today. But, you know, knowing that you probably all will receive the slide deck, I thought it just might be a useful resource for you all. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to quickly talk about hazard mitigation and the role that DSHS plays, which is the Homeland Security Emergency Services here in New York. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the state hazard mitigation plan, just because it gives some important context for the local hazard mitigation planning platform that I think is really particularly relevant for this group. And, you know, I think, as Leo sort of introduced before, this is really a tool and a resource for local planning, right? So it's here for mapping and for planning impacts, you know, on communities as it relates to assets, critical infrastructure and facilities, understanding hazard history, being able to easily use census data, and project and implementation pieces too. Next slide, please. So the very standard, what is hazard mitigation and what is hazard mitigation planning? So hazard mitigation is an action taken to reduce long-term risk to human life and property, and hazard mitigation planning, of course, is happening across the state. I'm very happy to say that all counties in our state either have an approved hazard mitigation plan or are in the process of updating their approved plan, so that's really excellent. You know, and these planning processes are sort of massive and can be integrated with lots of other things and leveraged in many ways. Next slide, please. The benefits of hazard mitigation are pretty vast. You know, of course, it really lends itself to overall resiliency. There's, you know, a metric out there that for every dollar spent on mitigation, $6 of future damages is avoided. Of course, the risk-informed decision-making is really important. You know, we try as much as we can to give awareness to this kind of, you know, risk-informed decision-making when other planning processes and policies are happening at a local level. You know, we always want to be sure that we're kind of aware of our risk. And then, of course, when it comes to the other phases of emergency management, like preparedness and recovery, you know, mitigation is a piece of that. So a strong mitigation process and plan, you know, strengthens all of those pieces too. Next slide, please. So the other piece about hazard mitigation plans, unlike a lot of other sort of resilience or climate related planning processes, is that they are federally mandated. The slide here shows the local mitigation planning policy guide. This was recently updated and this new version became effective in April of this year for both the state and local planning processes nationwide. This was a FEMA headquarters update. So, you know, if you've recently been a part of this kind of process, I'm sure you'll be aware of some of those changes, but I'll say more about that in the next slide. Next slide, please. So the local policy updates had a lot to do with right sizing the scope of the plan. So, you know, I think FEMA over a period of time got a lot of feedback across all of the regions in the country and, you know, have a sort of a clearer scope for this planning process. You know, adding the effects of climate change was something that's now, you know, a regulatory piece. Building codes, land use, development ordinances are all things that need to be highlighted more clearly in these plans. And then, I think most importantly in the local policy update was the piece about really having a broad range of stakeholders and a wide sort of scope for engagement. Next slide, please. So DISH's role in all of this is DISH administers FEMA's HMA funding. That's Hazard Mitigation Assistant Grant Program funding. DISH also provides technical assistance to locals in their planning process or through their maintenance period. And they are the lead state agency responsible for maintenance and update of the state hazard mitigation plan, which, like I said, DISH is responsible for updating that, but really that's the state plan. The Disaster Preparedness Commission has something near 30 agencies that adopt this plan. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of information on this slide, but for local communities, it's important to understand that having a FEMA approved hazard mitigation plan is necessary to receive mitigation grant funding. In New York, these planning processes are multi-jurisdictional plans that are developed at the county level. They all have cascading timelines across the state. So, across the state, there are plans that have just been approved. There are plans that are just kicking off, and there are many plans that are sort of in their 5-year maintenance period. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, DISH administers this funding. This slide is really more here for anybody who wants to take a closer look at these programs and understand what they are. So I'm just going to sort of leave this here as a resource and not talk too much about it. Then we've got I don't know if you saw what I saw, but there was a DISH's slide here about the different HMA programs, HMGP, BRIC, and FEMA, but I see we're on to the state plan history slide, which is totally fine. So the state plan in 2018 transitioned to a web-based plan for the first time. The first plan was adopted and approved in 2005 in response to the regulatory pieces that came to pass in 2000. And typically these hazard mitigation plans are thousands of pages and they're really dense and they may or may not be super valuable to different parties. And so we really wanted to put something together that felt like an important resource that could be leveraged, across interagency work, but also really importantly for local planning processes and local plans. We wanted this to translate to data and visualizations and tables and narratives that would be really digestible for locals, but also very valuable to their own planning processes. Next slide, please. So after we developed the state plan online, we pivoted to developing a local hazard mitigation planning platform. And we did this in partnership with a lab at University at Albany called AVAIL, which is the Albany Visualization and Informatics Lab. They were our partner also on that state plan. So this was sort of a natural progression of that work. And this local platform is structured to align with all of the FEMA requirements. So the idea is that it doesn't necessarily standardize the planning process itself, but it does provide a standard sort of structure to meet all of the necessary requirements and to hopefully exceed those requirements through the data that's available and through the sort of like web structure that the plan would then be produced in. Next slide, please. So this here is just a little snapshot. This is the 2022 Schenectady County Hazard Mitigation Plan, which was developed largely in-house at DISH's to pilot this system. There are many visualizations across the plan that are automated through, our databases and connections to external APIs. But I think part of what we really wanted to make sure to share with you all today is that, these pieces of the plan, these data pieces can be a really heavy lift in updates or in new planning processes. And so what this platform does is it gives you all of that sort of ready-made. So these are just sort of standard visualizations that are included in the platform. Next slide, please. And then there's also room for creativity. So in 2021, we supported a partnership between Niagara County and the University of Buffalo, and they use their they use that update to sort of pilot externally the Mitigate New York platform. And the result was really incredible, you know, because it went really kind of far beyond what was available in the tools and showed us sort of more of what can happen here. You know, they had a ton of community engagement. The risk assessment was really strong. And they provided a lot of, you know, significant feedback for us to sort of learn and understand and, you know, really integrate into the next phase of this project. Next slide, please. So this is the back end of the plan, right? So it's called the content management system. And in the back end of the plan, there's a lot to do with the planning process itself and the data pieces I've been referencing that are sort of external data sets from FEMA or from NOAA or from CDC. But there's also a lot of opportunity to standardize what we call user-generated data, things for capabilities, actions, roles, problem statements, and problem areas. And then it kind of rolls it up to data for the whole state. Next slide, please. And importantly, this platform has a very extensive footprint level data set that covers the entirety of New York State. Next slide, please. And I only have a couple slides and then I'm wrapping up. So the assets in this map are intersected with flood risk. So, you know, what you see here is the 0.2% annual chance floodplain intersected with these assets. So all those buildings in green, you know, we can understand right away that they are in the 0.2% floodplain. But you also see other layers here, including land use, population, culverts, critical infrastructure, and hazard events. And so there's sort of a lot of potential use cases for this tool. Next slide, please. So we are in the process right now of a major overhaul of both the state plan and the local hazard mitigation planning platform. Importantly, and this is really what we wanted to express to you all today, it is available to all counties in New York State. It will continue to be available to all counties in New York State, and it will be much improved and much enhanced in the next 1 to 2 years as we are currently working on it now. And that means technical enhancements, data enhancements, but also things to make it easier for users, like user manuals, technical tutorials, you know, ways to easily interpret the data, things like that. Next slide, please. And then importantly, the statewide asset inventory at that footprint level that I just introed, that will be getting updated as well, which is sort of a huge undertaking, but we think it's going to hopefully provide a lot of value to anybody who wants to use it, right? Like this is a heavy lift and an expensive lift when you're doing it as a sort of one-off with consultants or with proprietary data. But the idea here is that this will become a very open source of information for New York State agencies and municipalities in their planning processes. Next slide, please. So this is just a piece about the counties that have already gone through this process and have used the platform. So you can go to any of these websites. So Sullivan, for example, .mitigatenewyork.org, but the ones in those gray boxes there are there for you to see and sort of peruse. And it's important to note that you will see the front end of the plan. So you will see the plan product and that back end that I mentioned, the CMS, the content management system with the forms and data and maps and asset inventory. That's all something that you need user authentication for, which is something that you can contact us about if you're interested in it. Next slide, please. And this is our contact information. My name is there in the top right. I'm Shannon Clark again. And I really am just standing in for Karina Cavallo today, who's the Deputy Chief of Mitigation Programs. You know, this is all sort of her brainchild. And she and Kevin Clapp, many of you probably know them, and they work closely with basically every county across the state. So if you want to learn more, if we can help you in any way with your planning process, please don't hesitate to reach out. And that's it.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thanks.
Great. So our next two speakers are actually going to be speaking about additional resources available at the state level, and that's going to be Dave Berge and Elaine Mahoney. And then followed by those two, we're going to have Mara Louise Shea, and I'm just going to introduce a little bit about them here. So Dave Berge has worked for the Office of Resilient Homes and Communities since 2015, and he has served in several roles spanning research, policy analysis, grant reporting, program implementation, and most recently, strategy and development functions. He is focused on long-term planning of the office, which was made permanent in October 2022, and building relationships with government and non-governmental organizations in pursuit of funding for homes and communities across the state. Elaine is program manager at the New York State Office's Homes and Community Renewal, and she manages multiple programs to improve sustainability through weatherization and improved equity in workforce development. And finally, we'll have Mara Louise Shea, who is a climate policy analyst with DEC Office of Climate Change. Her projects include the Climate Smart Communities Municipal Certification and Grants Program, as well as the Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Grants Program. So Dave, you can start us off.
Great, thanks so much, Megan. So next slide, please. So today, I'm really delighted to be able to speak about our office's work relating to extreme heat adaptation. Our office was originally set up in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, Hurricane Irene, and Tropical Storm Lee. And, although the extreme heat adaptation work was not an explicit goal, we were able to achieve several extreme heat adaptation co-benefits. Next slide, please. So I'll give you an overview today about our programs. So we were established to administer $4.5 billion in community development block grant disaster recovery funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. What that looks like in practice is we had several programs to meet the community's most urgent needs following these three disaster events. They included housing, community reconstruction, infrastructure, and our Rebuild by Design program. Next slide, please. So although, as I said, extreme heat was not our focus, we've been able to achieve extreme heat co-benefits as a result of our work, which was intersectional by nature. So we did this in several ways to benefit households and communities. The first is housing resilience for homeowners and renters, especially low and moderate income households. The second is resilient community spaces, which can be used for a variety of actions, including serving as cooling centers, sharing information, and providing shelter and public services to residents. And then the third area where we see significant co-benefits in our work is our work on community scale infrastructure, particularly on nature-based solutions for disaster-impacted communities. Next slide, please. So let's zero in a little bit on the housing resilience element. So our office funded home resiliency audits and retrofits for several homeowners, several hundred homeowners, to look at building envelopes. And all of our work was complying with the latest New York State Building Code, providing flood risk reduction benefits and extreme heat co-benefits. Also, our office funded a number of affordable rental housing developments. Again, these meet the New York State Building Code, and they provide shelter to low and moderate income households during extreme heat events. Pictured here is one of our developments. This is working with actually public housing with the Freeport Housing Authority on Long Island, and it's the Moxie Rigby apartment complex. Next slide, please. Zeroing in on community spaces, many of these spaces were damaged during Sandy, Irene, and/or Lee. And through our repair work and retrofit work, we were able to make these spaces, sturdier and able to withstand a variety of events, including extreme heat. So now they can be used as gathering places during and after emergencies. Pictured here are two sites. One is in the town of Amsterdam, it's their town hall. And then the other is the Rotterdam Firehouse. And both of these facilities can now function as cooling centers. Next slide, please. Finally, I'll talk to you today about our community scale infrastructure work. So our office funded a number of green infrastructure improvements, including replanting of urban tree canopies, such as in the city of Long Beach, and also funding green infrastructure programs in New York City. They've provided extreme heat co-benefits like shade and air quality improvements. We've also funded solar power battery backup and microgrid projects to provide energy resilience for communities during grid disruptions on hot days. So these are the three areas where historically we've been able to provide significant co-benefits coming out of Sandy, Irene, and Lee. And at this stage, we're forward-looking, working on Ida recovery and longer-term resilience needs for the state. And I think that covers it. Thank you very much. Next slide. Yeah.
I think Elaine is up next.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. My name is Elaine Mahoney. Thanks for having me here today. I am the program manager for sustainability special projects at New York State Homes and Community Renewal. And I'm here today to discuss the Weatherization Assistance Program and how it can intersect with extreme heat adaptation goals. So the Weatherization Assistance, thank you. The Weatherization Assistance Program is funded by the Department of Energy and paired with OTDA's LIHEAP program to provide energy efficient upgrades for low to moderate income housing. So on average, we deliver 7,000 units per year at a cost of $8,000 per unit. These units are delivered through a robust network of community action agencies that are integrated at the local level statewide. And these agencies employ a mix of strategies to implement the program, including pairing with NYSERDA programs and using subcontractors to increase the work scopes and maximize energy efficiency measures. The program was developed over 50 years ago during the energy crisis to improve energy affordability through efficiency measures, specifically for vulnerable communities. Energy benefits are from carbon being saved via improved efficiency. And in addition to the economic benefits that the program delivers for our customers, we see many co-benefits that the Department of Energy defines as non-energy benefits. So these include public health impacts and environmental impacts, such as decreased carbon emissions and improved air quality. We play a vital role in the reduction of airborne pollutants, including carbon dioxide and nitrogen dioxide and environmental smoke. Consequently, respiratory and cardiovascular health outcomes improve among our clients who are living in weatherized homes. Slide. The program serves households that have a 60% or lower state median income and has a specific focus for households that include elderly and minor residents. This overlaps with some of the current DAC designations within our service area. And our clients begin the program with an initial energy audit that informs scope development and prioritization. Two of our primary measures are focusing on air sealing and insulation, which not only increases efficiency and reduces cost, but it also provides improved thermal stability year-round for our clients. In addition to air sealing, we provide heat pumps for heating and cooling services. Weatherization significantly reduces the number of instances households experience of extreme temperatures. For individuals with chronic illnesses that are exacerbated by extreme temperatures, these reductions are crucial for improving their health outcomes. There's a significant reduction in the frequency of medical attention that weatherization clients have to receive due to extreme heat or cold when they live in a weatherized home. Slide. So in addition to the weatherization program, we recently launched our infrastructure program. We received $289 million through the Infrastructure Act to provide enhanced weatherization services for our state over the next several years. We're going to be leveraging our existing network of dedicated nonprofit and community-based action organizations within our communities to provide additional resources to expand scope and knowledge base to reach the state's climate goals by reducing emissions and heat impacts. This funding is going to double our annual unit production count to approximately 15,000 units per year. And additionally, with these dollars, we're going to be able to add new nonprofit partners to our network and launch a workforce development program in order to expand education and training opportunities. This will allow us to better serve the market overall and also provide living wage jobs for residents in our DACs. Deploying increased weatherization services statewide is estimated to save households an average of $9,000. These financial benefits generate additional health co-benefits by reducing the incidence of psychological stress that stems from the financial stress that can come from both energy and health bills. Slide. In Governor Hochul's 2022 State of the State, she announced a 2 million climate-friendly homes goal by 2030. So this goal is meant to support the goals of the CLCPA, which was previously passed. And the 2 million homes goal is defined as creating, part of that is 100 million electric-ready homes. And so this means energy efficiency will be increased most broadly, and another 1 million electrified homes. So we'll be replacing fossil fuel systems with clean energy, high performance electric systems. So if you're doing the math, that's approximately 800,000 units per year. So our weatherization and infrastructure programs are going to be supporting this unit goal by providing these training programs to ensure that there's a skilled workforce to help upscale the market and deliver these services to electrify low-income homes. And also part of this work is going to be upgrading New York's the efficiency of appliances within low-income homes. Slide. So to execute this goal, we're going to draw on a couple different funding sources. And so we're currently at the end of our ARPA program, which has provided partial or full electrification for over 500 units statewide. And we know that not only can our network of community action providers and nonprofit partners contribute to the electrified units by 2030, but as demonstrated with the early stages of our ARPA funding, and the core of our weatherization scopes of work, the network is going to play a critical role in reaching 1 million electric-ready units. So part of executing our goals and having a positive impact on extreme heat adaptation is going to be the ability to partner our funds with other programs, and weatherization and build programs will be coupled with Empower, AMEEP, home. They can also be paired with brick and several other sources to be able to maximize scopes to address extreme heat and health and carbon emissions reduction. Slide. Additionally, we have also launched the Climate Friendly Homes Fund with our partners at CPC. Climate Friendly Homes Fund is specifically for 5 to 50 unit multifamily properties. So is that it's on a national level not offered enough to large scale apartment buildings. So this program will address a larger number of multifamily properties, and properties will be targeted specifically that have affordable housing with a regulatory agreement, and we'll be looking at doing fuel switching for fossil fuel systems and improving building envelopes to reduce energy use and carbon emissions. So we hope that from learning a little bit more about weatherization and building climate friendly homes fund, we can work together more with everyone as part of this call in this community to better support our vulnerable communities' adaptation to a changing climate by improving energy efficiency and retrofitting affordable housing across the most vulnerable communities in the state. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Elaine. Okay, next up we have Marla Vichet.
Hello. Are we on my first slide?
We are, yes. And you can,
Okay,
if you can't
thanks.
see it,
Sorry.
you can just say next slide and they'll.
Yeah, I can't see the presentation because I'm just on my phone. Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Mara Shea with the Office of Climate Change. Could you go to the next slide? I'll just assume you're there. Thank you.
It's there, yeah.
And I'm here today to talk to you all about the Climate Smart Communities program, which is the flagship program of the Office of Climate Change Community Engagement Team. We've had a municipal certification program under this name since 2009 and a grants program of the same name since 2016. Could you go to the next slide? Okay. So this is a local government leadership recognition program in addition to our 50-50 matching grants program focused on climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. If you could go to the next slide. And really this program is about supporting local governments, which for our program means counties, cities, towns, and villages in their efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to adapt to climate change. As I mentioned, our certification program is the first way in which we do that. It's a voluntary, no fees associated leadership recognition program sponsored by 7 New York State agencies, including the Department of Environmental Conservation. And it offers a website and a roadmap along with technical assistance for communities to complete what we call our certification actions, which align with the best practices for greenhouse gas emission reduction and climate change adaptation at the local level. Could you go to the next slide? The first way that local governments become involved in our certification program is by passing a municipal resolution known as the Climate Smart Pledge, where they utilize these 10 pledge elements, provide us with a resolution saying that they've passed the pledge, and it's fairly simple for them to become registered in the program. Afterwards, they have access to our Climate Smart Communities portal website, where they can document the actions that they've taken for climate change, adaptation, and mitigation, and earn points towards certification of their municipality. Could you go to the next slide? And I've pulled some examples here of heat-related actions that we offer through our certification program. Most of them are sort of located within what we call Pledge Element 7, which is our climate change adaptation-based pledge element. We award points for communities that complete heat emergency plans, shade structure policies, and who build cooling centers. And also, in addition to sort of broader actions like green infrastructure, climate vulnerability assessments, climate adaptation plans, and that kind of work. Could you go to the next slide? The benefits of the certification program for these communities is one, that it provides free technical assistance for them. If you were to go back and to click on any one of those actions on our portal website, it would bring you to guidance and best practices for completing whatever that particular action might be. And that information is written by us, DEC, but also the partner agencies on this program. And so it's, you know, the best minds from DOH and DISHES and DOT and everyone who are the subject matter experts on whatever that particular action is. And we keep those up to date with the latest guidance and tools and examples from other communities, so that, you know, if you're interested in doing a comprehensive plan but focusing on climate change within that, then we have, you know, lots of resources for you there just within the website itself. Another benefit of the certification program is the leadership recognition. We offer 2 levels of certification for communities who have completed actions within our program, a bronze and a silver level. When a community is certified, they get a press event, they get signs to hang around their community stating that they are certified under this program. The press event usually has either the governor or the DEC commissioner. So it's a good sort of PR opportunity to show that that community leadership is interested in climate change and is doing good work to help mitigate and adapt to it. As I mentioned before, it's also sort of useful for our funding programs. Like the two programs are quite aligned, our CSC grants program and our CSC certification program. So communities that participate in our certification program often enjoy better success in getting our competitive grants. And then a lot of communities just say that this is it provides a great roadmap for climate action, and one that's not too prescriptive. We have, over 100 actions within this program, and there's a million ways to reach certification within that. So I think communities really appreciate the flexibility, but also just having everything laid out action by action on ways that we can make meaningful impacts in reducing our vulnerability to climate change. If you could go to the next slide, I want to move on to talking about our funding and technical assistance. And if you could go to the next slide, DEC CSE funding program. So as I mentioned before, our Climate Smart Communities grant program has been around since 2016. It's competitive 50-50 matching grants program for local governments only, and provides funds for climate change adaptation and mitigation-based projects. Since 2016, we've awarded $62 million to local governments across the state. And if you go to the next slide, you can see just a small example of some of the project types for which we've awarded funding. And they usually sort of have a large range to them. Some of them are based on planning, some of them are more implementation, some of them are more related to mitigation, some to adaptation. A few examples of extreme heat from just my own set of grants that I manage are cooling centers in Rochester that I'm currently working on, and also heat emergency plans in a number of different locations. So we provide 50% of the funding for those types of projects and sort of walk the grantees through that process and have them document their efforts for us. Could you go to the next slide? Sort of one last thing I wanted to talk about is that we also now offer regionally based technical assistance through our Climate Smart Communities coordinators, who are located sort of largely within the Regional Economic Development Council regions of New York State, and provide capacity and additional resources for communities in their areas who are interested in pursuing our grants, who are interested in pursuing certification. They will help them on that path towards getting certification, towards completing climate smart actions, and to a lesser degree working on their grant projects. If you could go to the next slide. And this is just an image of how we've distributed them throughout New York State. So this is sort of a recent addition to our program, and one we're very happy to have that sort of more direct link to our local governments. And if you can go to the next slide, here's just some helpful links if you are going to provide the presentation after this. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mara. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move on to the third section of our webinar here, and that's going to be focusing on really local examples of heat response. And you're going to hear from Rami Danawi, Emily DeAngelo, and Genesee Watson, and I'll introduce the three of them now, and then they will do their presentations. So we'll start with Emily DeAngelo, is a senior program manager with the New York State Association of County Health Officials, where she works to support and empower local health departments in their climate and health adaptation work. Emily received her bachelor's in public health education from James Madison University and her master of public health and environmental health sciences from the University of Albany School of Public Health. Genesee Watson is the Emergency Preparedness Coordinator of the St. Lawrence County Public Health Department, and she's been in the position for just under 4 years and has taken the lead role in the climate change adaptation project in her local health department. And lastly, Rami Daoui is a Lebanese-Palestinian grassroots activist serving as a Puente environmental justice campaign and policy manager, dedicated to advocating for marginalized communities. With a master's degree in sustainability in the urban environment, he has experience in organizing campaigns, mobilizing stakeholders, and shaping policies that address environmental and social equity. Rami is a skilled communicator, coalition builder, and community organizer, passionate about creating a more just and sustainable future for all. And it looks like we're starting with Rami.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so if we can move to the next slide, please. So I'm gonna be talking a little bit about El Puente's history and how we began. El Puente was founded in 1982 by Luis Cárdenas Costa, along with Eugenio Maldonado and Francis Lucerna, and El Puente came as a response, and we're gonna be celebrating our 41st, birthday. And we came as a response to an epidemic of gun violence that was troubling our youth in the south side of Williamsburg, and we're a community-based organization. And our mission is to inspire and nurture leaders for peace and justice. And we're going to talk a bit more about the work that we do. If you could go to the next slide, please. So, how did El Puente get to environmental justice, and what do we do? In the 90s, we created this movement within the south side of Williamsburg after we had realized that there was an increase in asthma rates in our community, and so after a 3-year asthma study, we had interviewed almost more than 5,000 residents, and we came up with the first scientific peer-reviewed article to ever be published by a community-based organization in the American Journal of Public Health. Our journey in environmental justice did not come to us as a choice. It was rather an obligation to the decades-long neglect of our communities by those policies in power. We did not choose environmental justice, and so we were burdened by it. And because we endured it for decades, we needed to respond. As environmental justice kind of dictates, we move in coalition spaces and we move in unisons with other folks within today what is labeled as disadvantaged communities. And so we co-founded the New York City Environmental Justice Alliance, and we are a part of many coalition spaces that work on the intersection between sustainability, environmental justice, and human rights. If you could move to the next slide, please. Primarily, the first issue that we talk about within our local context in North Brooklyn is air quality. The south side of Williamsburg has been home to many environmental hazards, but the main has been air quality, and that is due to several reasons, and I'm going to show some data and statistics around the causes of it and the effects of the air pollution that we have. But our work over the decades has shown us a couple of things. One, that our movement works and is successful, but it only works when we move within community, and it is successful when we move from a grassroots bottom up concept, because no universal solution can ever be implemented if the community rejects it. So the path to justice to us is one that stems from and within the community. And as a response, from those concepts, from the environmental justice realm, we developed a campaign. If you could move to the next slide, please. that focus on these three prongs, where we can achieve a holistic model for responding to the climate crisis as we live it. Um, with that, we see that the environmental justice movement is multidisciplinary. So in 2019, we launched our air campaign that was grounded in this holistic model that you see now. It required science, data, and reports, but also was imperative that we find other forms of expression to alleviate the impacts of the climate crisis that we are enduring, that the community is enduring. Through participatory approach, we were able to analyze and center the needs of those who were impacted by the crisis, and come up with solutions that better fit the community and that better fit as a response, that better work in terms of response within the community. If you could move to the next slide. Through our analysis, we were able to identify several causes to air pollution, but also as it relates to extreme heat, we realized that all of our public and open spaces where, and particularly the green spaces that we have, are lined up along the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway. And oftentimes these public and open spaces, because of the gray infrastructure, are hotspots for immense urban heat island effect. And we realized that North Brooklyn in particular, the south side of Williamsburg and Bushwick, have 22 times less open space per capita than New York City's average compared to the rest of the city. We have a severely low proportion of open spaces. And what you see here is the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, and this image really just exemplifies the intensity of the gray infrastructure that we have in the south side and what that means to us. If we can move to the next slide, please. This is more on the effects of air pollution, but this is exacerbated by extreme heat. And as we all know, extreme heat really amplifies the impacts of air pollution and the impacts of air pollution as it pertains to cardiovascular or respiratory illnesses. So through looking at these comparisons, we can see that the communities impacted both in aggregate and in daily life. And according to the New York City Community Air Source, the child asthma ER visits are almost double in our community than in Brooklyn. And when we see the impacts on adults, we see that the number is almost double between Brooklyn and New York City. And now, if you could move to the next slide, please. This is a map just showing the intensity of just this particular neighborhood, and how we have an intensely polluted district, and that is solely because of the amount of gray infrastructure. And we see that that this pollution, through doing citizen air science, is multiplied in the summer due to the heat, and the urban heat island effect. If you could move to the next slide, please. This is just a map that shows the reasons why we have exacerbated air pollution, and the amount of gray and transportation infrastructure that aids and abets in this catastrophe, basically. More so, if you can move to the next slide, please. When I was talking about the open space issues that we have, we realized within the COVID-19 pandemic that we really, even with the amount of open spaces that we have right now, most of them are devoid of tree canopy and green spaces. And so the next slide is going to show us the amount of tree canopy that exists within our district. So here the census tract identifies that our historically Black and Brown community has been disinvested over years in terms of tree canopy and green infrastructure. And what we saw was that a lot of flooding and heat-related illnesses had been showing up. So through the help through the help of our local council members and through leveraging our networks, we were able to come up with a locally led solution of offering citizen pruner classes to our community members that would give them the certification and the expertise to be able to prune the existing tree canopy and maintain the green infrastructure that exists to be able to mitigate the risk of extreme heat. We're also part of, if you could move please to the next slide. This shows how concentrated it is, but so as a response to that, we were able to team up with several stakeholders across the city in a coalition called the Forest for All NYC that was able to produce a citywide urban forest agenda that calls for equitable tree canopy cover for New York City that advocates for 30% canopy by 2035. Fortunately, after 2 years of community outreach, community input, we were able to successfully influence legislation that took a lot of its proponents from the urban forest agenda. If we move to the next slide. So here we show how the stormwater flooding and tidal flooding impacts the community. And along our waterfront, a lot of people during the summer attempt to cool off by being next to sources of water. But unfortunately, we do not have a lot of access to public open spaces. And so it's all gray infrastructure, even on the coast, which increases in our flooding. So in our advocacy as well, we work on finding and increasing those green and public spaces. If we can move to the next slide, please. This also speaks to the sewage overflow that we have. That even within the water, even within our waterways that exist now on our waterfront, it is polluted in extreme weather events such as rain and flooding. So finally, just to talk about the last slide, to talk about how as a community we move and how we respond to all of these issues that I mentioned. Because to us, when we want to talk about mitigation and community-led responses, we have to emphasize the causes of them. We cannot come and just offer solutions without putting into context what caused them. We as an organization work within the community and create working groups to develop community-led solutions and task forces. We also develop and work on coalitions to create strategic action plans. We monthly hold community forums and green table talks to envision what we dub as the green light district within our community, which is an equitable and holistic approach to the climate crisis, and that is including heat, flooding, air pollution, the whole 9 yards. We do also create direct actions, and that comes directly from the community and from the demands of the community. And so we protest, we create urgent actions that are needed to move the needle towards a more equitable approach to dealing with the climate crisis. And finally, we use other forms of expression to alleviate the crisis, and that involves art as a form of expression, using poetry and spoken word art to raise awareness against the dangers of the climate crisis, the impacts of extreme heat, flooding, air pollution, and to educate and inform the communities on the current state of being. And finally, we work with our local, state, and federal electeds to push the needle towards policies that actually benefit the communities and respond to the climate crisis, such as the CLCPA and many other local um, regulations. And that's it. Next slide is Q&A. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rami. There are a few questions in the chat, so Rami, maybe you could just answer those in the chat, or we could come back to them at the end. I want to make sure we have enough time for all of our speakers. Emily and Genesee, you're up next.
So much, Megan. And good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here. As Megan introduced me, my name is Emily D'Angelo, and I am a Senior Program Manager at the New York State Association of County Health Officials, otherwise known as NYSHO. At NYSHO, we represent, support, and serve each of New York's 58 local health departments as they work to protect and promote the health of everyone across the Empire State. More and more, we are seeing climate change and its associated impacts, including extreme heat, become a rising concern and priority for our local public health system. We're very thankful to be able to work closely with Neil Muscatello and his team at the New York State Department of Health to be able to support our local health departments in their climate and health adaptation work. Next slide. Before I get into some of the ways that our local public health sector can support communities in adapting to extreme heat, and without taking too much time, I did want to take a moment to acknowledge that the health impacts of rising temperatures go beyond heat-related illnesses. Warmer temperatures can increase the geographical distribution of disease-carrying vectors, such as ticks and mosquitoes. Toxic blue-green algae thrive in warmer waters, and these blooms of harmful algae, or HABs, pose a threat to the health of humans, animals, and the environment, and can also disrupt local economies and our ability to enjoy water recreationally, which we know is especially important to be able to access during extreme heat events. High heat events can also cause major disruptions to critical infrastructure, and when we lose power during extreme heat events, people also lose their ability to cool their homes, highlighting the need for systems to transition into more resilient ones that can withstand the extreme temperatures that are becoming more and more frequent. This is by no means an exhaustive list of the ways that extreme heat threatens health, but I just wanted to shine a light on these additional health threats for local communities to consider addressing as you all work to implement climate adaptations and mitigations. Next slide. When it comes to adapting to and preparing for extreme heat, there are several ways that local health departments can take action. For example, educating and informing the community about the signs of heat-related illness, how to protect themselves during high heat events, and how to access resources including free air conditioners and where to find your local cooling centers can help to prevent heat-related illnesses from occurring. When planning outreach efforts, it's really important to ensure that communications are reaching those who are at a higher risk for heat-related illnesses, including people who work outdoors, pregnant people, and older adults. Any materials that are written should be written in plain language and translated into the languages that are spoken by members of the community. Health departments can also host pop-up events, table at a fair or festival, or meet folks wherever they may be to distribute resources such as portable fans, sun hats, sunscreen, and other items that can help them protect their health during high heat events. One of the most important ways through which we've seen local health departments help prepare their communities for extreme heat events is through collaboration and partnerships. While we see many local health departments leading successful initiatives to help communities adapt to climate change and extreme heat, there remains many limitations preventing local health departments from being able to dedicate time, staffing resources, and funding to climate and health adaptation projects, and that's okay. There are many potential partners that local health departments can turn to support community-wide adaptations, including climate-smart community coordinators, academic partners, first responders, COADs, or community organizations active in recovery or disaster, and many more. Next slide. So this slide was actually developed by Josh Wilson from Erie County's Department of Environment and Planning. Josh shared the slide at NYSHO's Fall 2022 Virtual Climate and Health Adaptation Workshops, and it's a great visualization of the different levels of engagement, ranging from taking a minute to signing up for email updates to taking an hour to become a climate action ambassador for your community. I love sharing this slide as a reminder that there are always tangible actions that we can all take, even when resources and time are limited. Next slide. As I wrap up, I want to share where you can go to find more examples of what local health departments are doing around climate change and extreme heat. The National Association of County and City Health Officials has a great webpage dedicated to climate change that features success stories from local health departments across the U.S. As Neil mentioned earlier, NYS, in partnership with the New York State Department of Health, is currently funding 10 local health departments for climate and health adaptation projects, 3 of which are currently undertaking projects specific to extreme heat, including St. Lawrence County, who you'll be hearing from in a minute. I've included the hyperlink to the press release highlighting these projects, and we look forward to sharing more about these efforts in the future as these projects wrap up. We're currently in the middle of our funding period. I'd also like to highlight the resources from our fall 2022 virtual climate and health adaptation workshops. These workshops brought together local health departments and their partners, and a lot of information, resources, and examples were shared, and great ideas were generated. And we have the recordings and associated materials from these workshops available on our webpage at the hyperlink listed here. And I've also included my contact information. Please don't be a stranger, reach out to me. And I just want to thank you all for your time today, and I'll turn it over to Janess.
Awesome, thank you. So as she said, my name is Janess and I am from St. Lawrence County Public Health. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about how we are planning on helping with the extreme heat in St. Lawrence County. Next slide, please. So just as a little background, St. Lawrence County is the largest county in New York State. In the little graph, the map up at the top right-hand side, we are the county that's listed in red there. It's a mostly rural county. It's a mix of farms, forests, and small towns, and we have both tribal and international borders. Some people hear of St. Lawrence County because the St. Lawrence River runs to our side here. We also have Adirondack Mountains that lie in the southeast. And I put some census data on the left-hand side just in case anyone is interested. Next slide, please. So extreme heat in St. Lawrence County, especially in upstate New York, but specifically for our county, we've noticed that people are experiencing extremely hot summers. So there's more days over 85 degrees in St. Lawrence County, and the residents aren't prepared to know what to do in those scenarios. So this is our first project that we're working on with climate change adaptation and specifically to polling center exposures. So we wanted to answer a couple questions as we were going through this project, such as how can we encourage more polling centers to be open around the county? We wanted to look at how many individuals were currently using polling centers. How can we increase awareness about the polling centers in the county? And what would the best outlet for providing extreme heat education be to the community? We know that there are a lot of public health implications that come with exposure to extreme heat, and especially for those who have chronic illness, people with disabilities, workers who are working outside, people who are pregnant or breastfeeding, and postpartum women. So just working to see how we can best support the residents of St. Lawrence County to handle that extreme heat. Next slide, please. So we're putting the project into motion. So really what we're trying to do with this project is increase the number of polling centers around the county, as well as increase the access to the polling centers and to encourage individuals to learn more about what extreme is and how they can best try to keep themselves safe in the event of extreme heat. So what we did first was we partnered with a couple of our community partners. So we worked with our local Climate Smart Communities Task Force and the St. Lawrence County Health Initiative to discuss what we wanted this project to look like. So from meeting with our partners, we discussed that we wanted to get our local cities, towns, and villages involved. We wanted to reach out to those jurisdictions and ask if they would be able to either pose an idea for where they think a polling center could be and see if they might be able to help staff and see what resources they had to be able to help to set up that community center. So we sent a letter out to the cities, towns, and villages to identify the polling centers. We compiled a list of the polling centers to be advertised. And we are discussing our plan for notifying sites about upcoming heat emergencies. Our step 5 is to create and share educational materials about the polling center location list in the community. And then we want to go back and evaluate the project to see how things went. Next slide, please. So our first goal was to, again, just raise the number of polling centers that we have in the county. Prior to this year, we had 7 polling centers identified. We have currently doubled that number just by our reach out to our local villages and townships. So it's a good thing to see that we're seeing more of these. And just kind of going back to think about how St. Lawrence County is structured. Because it is a large geographic county, we do have a lot of smaller villages and towns where transportation may be a difficult challenge for individuals to get to a polling center. So the more polling centers that we have, even though they may be small, it might make it more accessible for individuals to find those polling centers. And one of the add bonuses that we found from this was that some jurisdictions were potentially unable to provide an air-conditioned location for someone to go in to cool off, but they've also listed other options that they thought might be a good option for someone who may not be able to access one of the polling centers as well. So our next step for the project, again, this is an ongoing project. We are going to begin a comprehensive social media campaign over the next 6 weeks, starting next week, which will each week we'll talk or focus on a specific topic in regards to public health implications from extreme heat, and then also how to access the polling centers when necessary. We're going to create, print, and provide printed materials to local businesses, and also provide posters to our polling centers so that they can be listed as a polling center. All of our polling centers are going to be listed not only on our website, but they're also listed on the New York State Department of Health website. Looking ahead, something that we wanted to focus on would be working with our partners in local jurisdictions to prepare for warming center locations across St. Lawrence County. Because we were successful in doubling the number of polling centers that we have currently in the county, we want to try to implement the same project moving forward with warming center locations. St. Lawrence County, we worry most about our snow and ice, extreme, cold weather, frigid temperatures. And we did have a couple scenarios this winter where we did need to stand up shelters and warming center locations. So having more facilitated areas for those for warming centers would be definitely a benefit to the county. Next slide, please. So a couple challenges that we faced along the way. The first one was just a lack of interest in participating or not interested in helping to find a polling center by the local towns and jurisdictions. We've tried to help this by having our partners at the St. Lawrence County Health Initiative and the Potsdam Climate Smart Communities Task Force. They call jurisdictions personally in order to discuss the benefits of having a polling center in the community. And they would also explain what a polling center looks like and what other jurisdictions may have used. So in the event that we had a township that didn't respond, they would call that individual and say, hi, well, other locations have used your library. Have you thought about maybe potentially using your library as a polling center? And that has helped to increase the overall awareness of what a polling center is, and then also to try to initiate that conversation as to if they can open that as a polling center. The next challenge that we faced was, the next challenge that we faced was just seeing that sites may have the location to have a polling center. However, they feel like they don't have the appropriate equipment, whether that means air conditioning or if they don't have things to do while people are at the polling center. So we had been helping to find some grants for these facilities to potentially apply for. And with things of NYS DEC and New York State Department of Health, we have found a couple funding programs that may be of assistance to them. It's now just getting it into the hands of those who can apply. So I think the next slide is just my contact information. Yeah, so if there are any questions, please let me know. I just wanted to bring to light what we're doing in our large but rural St. Lawrence County. So thank you.
Thanks, Genesee. That was really great. So next up, we have Dave Hongela, who's the Director of Heat Response and Mitigation for the City of Phoenix. And what we've asked him to do is prepare a set of slides and at the same time reflect on what he's heard as what's happening in New York State. So he's actually sort of adjusted his slides a little bit to reflect on that, and we're going to have him share his slides. So maybe while I'm introducing him in his bio, Craig, you could work your screen share magic so that Dave is actually able to do the screen sharing if that's not too much of a trouble. He's just added a couple things in there to respond to what he's heard over the last hour and a half.
I've adjusted the presenter role over to David, so you should be all set.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll just introduce him real quick and then we'll hand it over to Dr. Hongela. So in his role as the Director of Heat Response and Mitigation for the City of Phoenix, Arizona, he helps coordinate and implement programs to protect people from dangerous summer heat and cool the city and make it more comfortable. Hongela joined the city in October 2021 following Phoenix City Council's vote to create the country's first publicly funded local government office focused on heat. He was recognized as one of the top 100 influences in local government in the United States in 2022. Angela has been a faculty member at Arizona State University School of Geographical Sciences and Urban Planning since 2016 and has co-authored more than 90 peer-reviewed research articles, book chapters, and technical reports related to extreme heat, public health, and urban climatology. He earned his PhD in environmental sciences from the University of Virginia in 2013.
Thanks, Megan, and thanks so much for the chance to be here and learn from all the great work happening. I'll just check in with you, Megan, that we can hear and see okay and the screen share is set up correctly.
Yeah, that it's working great.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, and good morning, everyone from warm and sunny Arizona. Again, it's been such a delight to hear of all the amazing work happening across the state, and a real honor to share time with you all this morning. I wanted to share just a couple of words about the unique opportunity we've had here in Phoenix to stand up a heat office as part of the local government structure, and then provide a few thoughts, really provide a few discussion prompts based on what we've heard thus far. So we're about 2 years into our journey into having a heat office here at the city of Phoenix, and we've been learning what the work is to do as we've been getting started. We've certainly spent some time thinking about what the priorities for a heat office might be. As those of you who are heat champions on the line very well recognize, there's no clear playbook for how to do heat work in local, county, or state government, although the Climate Smart Communities program in New York could be seen as an example, an excellent example of such a playbook. I won't spend time dwelling on all 8 of our priorities, 4 of which are on the slide here, but just to hit a couple of them. We are thinking about heat both from the emergency preparedness and public health side, what we call heat response, and the long-term cooling and thermal comfort side, which we call heat mitigation. And it's been a really interesting part of our journey, learning how our collaborators and peers think about those 2 different domains as all working toward different parts of the heat problem. We're certainly trying to inject a data-oriented, research-informed approach to the heat work here in the city of Phoenix. And I heard so much of that on the webinar today, the integration of, in many cases, peer-reviewed literature, which we certainly appreciate here. We have chosen to, and in some cases had to by necessity, take on a regional coordination role as the only local government here in the Phoenix area that have staff who are exclusively dedicated to working on the heat problem. And that's certainly one of my questions for the discussion, is how have we seen heat leadership emerge at all scales of government in New York? It's very clear there is a lot of it from listening to this webinar, and I'd like to hear more about how that came to be, and who are the heat leaders? What departments are they in? What has their background been? I think that's a question we share across the country. The last 2 here on the slide, these 2 priorities we consider our pillars: being responsive to community needs and guidance, and advancing what we've been calling heat equity here, the recognition of disproportionate impacts, and then the idea that we need to make disproportionate investments in certain communities to remedy the historical disproportionate impacts that we've seen. And I will say, with respect to being responsive to community needs and guidance, we found ourselves threading a needle in an interesting way, certainly not one that I expected coming into the role. While we absolutely cherish, value, champion, and are investing in community engagement, we also hear some feedback from the community that they've engaged enough. They've told us, we'll get emails that have something like, we've sent in our comments on social media, we've answered your surveys, we've come to the meetings, we've told you what to do, just go do it. So we're trying to find the balance between remaining engaged while leveraging all of that wisdom that's been shared with the city in the past. A part of the reason the heat office was created here in the city was because of the quote you see on the slide here. This is from a meeting summary that was actually part of our BRACE program in Arizona a number of years ago. And I don't mean to pick on emergency managers here. The same could be said for a really wide variety of professions, but this idea that there's been ambiguity around who is owning the heat work, I think, was a big part of the motivation for why our mayor and city council created the heat office a couple of years ago, as well as what we're seeing in terms of our public health data. These are data from our county here, Maricopa County, population 4.5 million, the number of heat-associated deaths captured by their heat health surveillance program, which, very similar to New York City, is one of the strongest heat health surveillance programs in the country. And you can see that these numbers are absolutely moving in the wrong direction very rapidly. We're very confident this is not a reporting signal. And of course, the rate of increase here far outpaces anything we'd expect with respect to population growth, despite increasing attention to an investment in heat over the last decade plus. So a bit of a paradox here for us to continue to think about. I have some thoughts on these patterns, but to save time, to transition into a little bit of our discussion, the Stafford Act was mentioned today, and some of you may have seen the news from multiple legislators in Congress, including Ruben Gallego, a congressman from Arizona, the gentleman in the blue blazer there, who has helped respond to Mayor Kate Gallego's call here in Phoenix for more federal engagement on heat through FEMA. And there is legislation on the floor of the House right now. I don't think it's been assigned to subcommittee yet. Maybe some of you know better than I do. That would formally add extreme heat to the Stafford Act. It's been part of the conversation here that the absence of extreme heat in the Stafford Act has created somewhat of a culture of indifference, we might argue, between FEMA and local governments in working together on heat. And I'm sure those of you who are out in the field working on heat very much feel like you're in the middle of disaster response and disaster planning, the same way we see for other hazards that FEMA has invested in. So I very much look forward to thoughts from others on how consequential this may or may not be for our work moving forward. But just a few thoughts and questions. We're really looking to learn from you all and make a couple of observations of what we've heard so far. I was so happy to hear the local hazard mitigation plans as an integral part of today's conversation, and would love to hear how that's been going, more specifically related to heat in New York. Just to dive into that one for a moment, we saw tremendous leadership here locally from the city of Tempe, our neighbors to the east, in our last update to the hazard mitigation plan. In 2015, these were the heat actions in their hazard mitigation plan as related to heat. And like could be said for cities all across the country, the heat actions were essentially make a few announcements and hand out bottles of water. And I'm sure this community of heat champions agrees that that is a very poor reflection of all the work that we are doing and should be doing. So Tempe took their hazard mitigation plan with great individual leadership from 3 heat-related actions to 38 in their 2021 plan, interpreting, framing heat much more broadly and recognizing that if we want to be in the conversation for more federal funding, for more investments in heat, we need to see those ongoing and proposed actions in the hazard mitigation plan. I see that as a big success and certainly something that we'll be trying to model from in the city of Phoenix when we have our next update opportunity. So we'd love to hear more about how heat is really fitting into the hazard mitigation plans there in New York State. Goals, metrics, and problem framing is an ongoing question here. What are the goals specifically related to heat? How are we measuring progress toward them? And how are we even interpreting when people say heat is a challenge in our community? What do they mean? Just to give one particular example, one of the quotes that appears in one of our neighborhood engagements refers to a concern a parent has about their kids going outside, not enough time. They don't have enough time to go outside in the summer because it's too hot, and they're concerned about what that means for a sedentary lifestyle and being physically active. And as a relatively new parent myself, when I hear that quote, I think about where are the shaded playgrounds? And I think we are too often in the heat community building metrics around the instrumentation on the other side of the slide here. The measurements we're taking at an airport, for example, of air temperature or maybe surface temperature, that aren't reflective of thermal comfort, aren't reflective of shade quality in the actual spaces where people are spending their time and are concerned about. So I'm curious to hear how that's playing out in New York State. Are we moving toward more refined metrics? We're struggling to figure out how to do so at a meaningful scale here, but I think it's really important because when people talk about heat, I think they're talking about that picture of the shaded slide, and they're not talking about necessarily the air temperature as we measure at the airport. We heard a lot about the evidence base in New York State for setting thresholds. Amazing to hear about the work with the Weather Service to move thresholds for heat warnings based on some of the epidemiology that had been conducted. And we share the questions you have about how we can integrate more knowledge into moving thresholds. A real question we have here is about thresholds for indoor comfort and safety. I also understand there's legislation on the floor of the House in California that is directing a California state agency to come up with indoor heat safety thresholds. Phoenix, the city of Phoenix does have a cooling ordinance. You can see some of the limits there, but we have yet to find a single person who understands the history of where these numbers came from. What evidence were they really based on? Even the people who are managing this program day in and day out, they're not quite confident how we got to these numbers. So I'd love to hear more how you're thinking about evidence base for particular programs, particular policies that are in place, and how good is good enough when it comes to generating evidence that can help us set these rules. And finally, certainly a challenge that I felt day in and day out in starting the work in the heat office. I find myself continually looking for specific tools for specific tasks. And I'm as guilty as anyone else in having generated what I would consider generic social vulnerability indices, hazard vulnerability maps. And I've been actually surprised how little I've been using those tools since starting this job about a year and a half ago. And I'll give a particular example. We'll just zoom in on the tree planting domain for a moment. We, like many communities in New York State, work with American forests, and we spend a lot of time with the American Forest Tree Equity Score Map, which I think is absolutely a wonderful tool for getting the conversation started about where we want to prioritize, and in this particular case, investments for trees in our city. And for those who haven't spent any time with the tool, it works beautifully. It's interesting integration of different data sources. We can debate some of the nuance, but in terms of a great place to get started, they've done a fantastic job. But wearing my city hat, a question we might have is, where can we direct money through a particular initiative in a particular department? Maybe it's the streets department, maybe it's the parks department, when the question is not which census block group makes the most sense for investment, but which of the little tiny polygons or line segments in the case of streets embedded within this larger geographic context are most appropriate. So we've been continuing our work with American Forest to develop more specific tools for specific decisions, like exactly which street landscape maintenance area is the most important to invest in right now, which I would argue we can't very clearly answer with these coarser tools. So how much time do we spend building specific tools for specific decisions is a question I hopefully share with many of you. And with that, Megan, thanks so much. Really looking forward to the discussion, and thanks for the chance to share some of our experience here in Phoenix.
Great, thanks, Dave, and thanks for seeding the discussion there. Maybe I'll open it up with that first question that you had asked that I can open up to all of our speakers. And that question is about, how has heat leadership emerged, and sort of in parallel to that, how are people working across scales of government to do the work in heat? Is anyone interested from our panel, our many speakers, in taking a pass at that question? And you can just put your video on, and that way I know you're interested in responding.
I can start, Megan, sure.
Go ahead.
I think, at least from a DOH perspective, we benefited from having those race grant funds early on, and so that gave us sort of a focus in the department. And then the way we've approached it is, to sort of reach out, and once we became aware of a program working on climate health issues in other state agencies, we'd reach out and have try to figure out where we maybe have some common work to do. And then, we've, as Emily mentioned, we've worked closely with NYSHO to start to encourage more local level climate health action as well. So really working through NYSHO to local health departments has been, I guess, our primary conduit from a climate health perspective to the local level.
Thanks. For other people on the panel, want to take a pass at that question, how they think about heat leadership and working across scales? Maybe a follow-up question would be, so Neil, you answered that question with related to heat and health, but there, certainly there's other impacts, other than health. There's the, the agriculture piece, the infrastructure, that type of thing. Ideas that panelists have about working sort of in that way?
Megan, you're posing these great questions that are stumping the panel. I'll just share a little bit of the Phoenix experience to maybe help jog some thoughts. It feels like we're doing a lot for heat. And I think the same could be said in New York State. There's a huge portfolio of heat investments that are being made and a long list of heat challenges. And what I'm curious to see someone do, maybe this is something we can work on together through the BRACE program, Neil, is taking those two long lists and putting them in a two-dimensional matrix to understand how the parts of the problem are matching up with the investments we're making. For example, when we're deploying cool pavement on city streets, we might be helping protect the infrastructure, but we can argue the public health benefits would be tangential or at least secondary there. And how do we understand how that whole portfolio is working together toward what end is a big question we have.
Great question. Yep, absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
Just going to agree.
There's one question in the chat for you, Dave. Are you working with Brad Lancaster to harvest gray water for public cooling spaces? Yeah, maybe you could speak a little bit about the use of water, especially in Arizona, how that's public water has tied into the response.
Yeah, certainly number one question we receive anytime the conversation of trees comes up. Yeah, I'll try to provide a more general answer, Megan, that perhaps will resonate with New York audiences as well. I've been learning there's a lot of inertia in the system of local government where we typically haven't had a lot of green stormwater infrastructure features on city streets. And that has been a slow, we're really taking small bites to try to eat the elephant there, to try to change the culture, to at least being open to the idea when we have the opportunity there, rather than it being an exceptional consideration. And I suspect that's true across a lot of the heat portfolio as well. This idea of moving from one-offs and case studies to mainstreaming is something that we're working on. I'm not aware of this the water harvesting prevention in the city of Phoenix proper, but in some of the surrounding areas there are some concerns. At some point, I assume we're going to be receiving water from New York State to help us through.
Maybe I'll follow up with another question that's somewhat related to evidence. So you had mentioned that you had a question again for everyone on the call here. How much evidence do you want before you implement some of these heat mitigation efforts, or even the heat response efforts? And where do you go to find that evidence? Does anyone on the call want to take a pass at that?
Can you just say that again, Megan? I didn't catch the whole.
Sure, yeah. Just as local people working at all scales, from the community organization scale up to the state, when they're looking for, evidence-based best practices, how much evidence do they want? What are you looking for in a response, in an action? Whether it's tree planting or, cooling centers, cooling buddy programs.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question too, and the BRACE program puts a lot of emphasis on the evaluation part of things, and that perhaps in line with what David had mentioned in terms of having meaningful indicators that kind of we're measuring progress has been a bit of a challenge. So I thought the slide that he showed with sort of where we're measuring heat versus where people are actually outside being exposed to heat was really interesting and thought-provoking in some ways. I mean, we hear a lot about the cooling of trees, but this idea of shading playgrounds so kids can go out is a great point, and that's really where it matters to have good information about what the heat exposure would be. So, but getting back to your original question, I think that it is a little bit of a challenge. It's not other areas of public health have sort of interventions that have been tested over time or different programs. I think that's still evolving in the area of climate and health. Based on my experience, I don't know if others would comment differently, but
Yeah, thanks for responding. Maybe with that, just because some of our speakers have dropped off and we had a lot of different speakers. I'll just take this opportunity while we're still here, just to thank everyone for participating and adding all of your ideas, all the great work that's happening across scales for preparing for this upcoming summer. So all of these webinars are available on the DEC webpage. So if people are interested in looking at this one or looking at the previous three, you can go there, and I believe Craig has the link to that, and they were in the chat as well. So with that, I'll thank everyone for coming.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, everyone enjoyed the discussion.